Hey guys, welcome to the Massive Iron Channel. I'm Steve Shaw. In this video, I'm going to talk about the big three, but not just the big three, but what would be the big three after the big three. Before I get into that topic, if you would like to join my new free community, you can check out the link down below. All right, so I'm in Wisconsin visiting family. Had to stop off and take care of some family business, and I'm doing a ghetto video, the old school massive iron style today. But I was asked, we always talk about the big three, and I was asked to address what are the big three after the big three. And this is kind of a question I want to toss out to you guys. After the squat, bench, and deadlift, what are your big three? Now, obviously, there's no right or wrong answer to this. It's all, personal opinion, personal experience, what you guys feel are the most impactful lifts for you. So I'm going to share some thoughts on my end, and I want you guys to drop a comment down below and let me know what are your big three lifts after the squat, bench, and deadlift. Even if you don't like the squat, bench, or deadlift, even if you don't do them, don't care about them, whatever. What are, excuse me, what are your big three lifts? So I'm trying to process this myself because it's not an easy answer, and I'm trying to look at what lifts do I feel have had the most impact? What are the most impactful lifts? What are the big hitters? What are the big bang for the buck lifts for me? So let me walk through these a little bit and kind of analyze things. Over the years, I've been pretty obsessed with overhead pressing. Done a lot of barbell overhead pressing. I started with the BTN press. I did the BTN press exclusively till, I don't know, maybe 2007. And then I started doing the seated front press. I did all seated pressing over the years simply because back in the day, you just didn't see a lot of guys military pressing in the materials that I looked at. They were doing a lot of seated pressing, BTN pressing, that sort of thing. So the seated BTN was really my staple. I got up to a 315 pound seated BTN before I ever started messing with a front press. So I also did a lot of seated dumbbell overheads. I remember back around 1997, the gym had 120s, and I remember getting up to 120 for 5 reps. Getting those dumbbells into position, is such a major challenge and a little bit of a rabbit trail, but I'm often asked what to do when you are struggling to get those dumbbells in a position. And a lot of it has to do with, instead of just trying to swing them into position, maybe considering doing a standing single arm dumbbell overhead press instead. But those two lifts, the seated dumbbell overhead press and the BTN press, have to be in the conversation for me. When it comes to back, dumbbell rows has to be in the conversation for me. The barbell row just wasn't a lift that I did a lot of, or the pendlay row, before 2007. So for those of you guys keeping score, I started lifting around 1986. Seriously, in 86, 89, I made my best progress. So I didn't do a lot of barbell rows or pendlay rows during that time. The dumbbell row was definitely my staple. And around 2007, when I had access to more weight, my dumbbell row started pushing up from 120s upwards of 220, 240 for reps. So the dumbbell row has to be in the conversation for me. And I'm trying to think, are there any leg exercises that I did that need to be in the conversation? I mean, the leg press had value, the leg extension had value. I don't know that that's in the conversation for me. The close grip bench press was a lift I really relied on heavily after my bench press work, especially for triceps and lockout strength. Biceps, I'm not a big fan of. Training biceps doesn't mean I haven't done it, but I don't think any biceps exercise are in the conversation. No isolation type of movement. So chest outside of the bench press, nothing really. I mean, the plate loaded chest press is an exercise I really like as a complementary lift to the bench press and for chest development. but that's just not big enough. So I got a back exercise, I got a couple shoulder exercises, no real chest, no real legs. Um, I did a lot of Romanian deadlifts and good mornings, but I wouldn't say those are in my big three. I don't know. I mean, thinking about it, if I'm forced to add a third, it might have been the Romanian deadlift. But, when I look at things, I'm going to have to go with the power shrug. I'm going to have to go with the power shrug as a big hitter simply because it's a lift I really like. It's a lift that I feel you can get really strong at and you can really challenge your yoke, and it's more lower back friendly. Um, I mean, it's not specifically a something you do alternating with a deadlift, but over the years at my strongest, I would do my deadlift floor pulling one week, and then the next week I would do kind of off the ground pulling and a lot of power shrug work. So the power shrug has to be in the conversation. And I would say pulling off the floor or the block pull or the rack pull has to be in the conversation for me because deadlifting, I didn't really start deadlifting until 2007. And I found out that it was a pretty natural lift for me because I had spent 20 years lifting. I was up to about 565 really, really quickly on the deadlift. And but I found out when I tried doing the block pull that I was actually weaker off the floor, or excuse me, weaker off the floor. 3, 4, 5 inches off the floor than I was with my floor pull. So when I really started to attack the floor pull or the block or the rack pull or the block pull, I noticed my deadlift started to go up. That was an integral part of moving my deadlift from 565 up into the upper sixes. And when I was at my biggest, I was in somewhere in the 700s. We don't really know. 750, 775, probably somewhere in that range. But so the lifts I think are in the conversation for me are the Romanian deadlift, the block or rack pull, the power shrug, the dumbbell row, and the seated dumbbell overhead press and the BTN press. I know that's more than three, but if I had to kind of distill things down, those are kind of the six lifts that would be in the conversation for me. And then I would have to sort them down into three. I would say the floor block pull, number one, the dumbbell row, number two, and I would say it's got to be the seated BTN. I love the seated dumbbell overhead presses, but the seated BTN, it was such an integral cornerstone part of my training and my shoulder development. So there you have it, guys. Those are my big three after the big three. I want to hear what your big three are after the big three. Please drop them down below. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great day.